Just outside the temple, Steve and Fuchsia encounter a street vendor selling a tantalizing and wholesome snack.
So Steve, in the old days, everywhere you went in Chengdu, you'd find all these snack sellers selling what they call xiaoshi, small eats, these favourite little local snacks. And I'm really excited to come across this one because this is the equipment carried by a traditional seller of flour bean curd, silken bean curd, douhua. And they always used to carry these black and red wooden barrels with all their gear, their flavourings, their bowls. But these days they're quite hard to find. This is silken bean curd that's tofu that's not been pressed, so it's really custardy and light and melt in your mouth. Still warm, it would have been freshly made. 拌什么呢? Okay, 这个啥子?
味精, 酱油,
soy sauce,
这是辣椒油的啊.
chili oil,
啊.
inevitably.
Of course, right?
Finely cut scallion, a
大头菜,
bit of datou cai, that preserved mustard tuber, lovely and crisp and sour, deep fried soybeans,
花椒,
a bit of ground roasted Sichuan pepper for that lip tingling
有
zing.
没有点糖?
一点点，好吃吗？你觉得好吃？ A little bit of sugar.
来，
啊，谢谢。再来一个勺子可以吗？我们两个人每个人一个。Look at that.
Oh my god. Oh, that's so soft.
Yeah, so tender and slippy. Beautiful texture.
Oh, the texture is amazing, and the oils against the onions.
And all those crispy, crunchy things on top.
Fantastic.
This is one of the real traditional old Chengdu snacks. In the past, there were so many of them, many of which have become famous now, although you don't see them on the streets any longer, like Dan Dan noodles. And there were zhong shui jiao, the wonderful spicy dumplings that we've had with soy sauce and garlic and chili oil, all kinds of delicious snacks. And part of the sort of sounds of the old city of Chengdu, you'd walk around the street and you'd hear someone shouting out, 豆花, 豆花, 担担面, 担担面. And so it's just sort of, you could lie back in a tea house and just listen and hear all the different sounds, some people knocking out little tunes on a piece of metal. It makes me really nostalgic seeing this.
So you knew the sounds and then you knew the food.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
You'd know when to leap out of your seat and rush to get a bowl full of warm douhua.
Very good.
To sample a variety of traditional street snacks in Chengdu, such as dumplings and noodles, head for Jin Li Street, where many vendors sell their specialties side by side. Fuchsia takes Steve on an insider's tour one afternoon and introduces him to some of her favorites.
You know, Steve, in the past there were snack sellers all over the streets of Chengdu, and they'd walk around the old lanes of the city calling out what they were selling, and people would come out of the houses to buy. But with the redevelopment and modernisation of Chengdu, a lot of these old streets have gone. And so a lot of the snack vendors have disappeared. And one thing that the local government has done has been created this rather touristy area of sort of traditional style architecture. But they've brought together a whole lot of people selling different Sichuanese traditional snacks.
Street food,
Yeah, so it's a chance to see some of the traditional methods of production and maybe taste a few interesting things. In the Sichuan countryside, you get a lot of these kind of snacks which are made of glutinous rice, different kinds of cakes, some sweet, some salty, and this one is wrapped in bamboo leaves. 鲜的还是甜的？
甜的，
甜的 sweet.
一点点甜。
好了 Yeah, so glutinous rice and brown sugar.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. It has
Kind of a raisiny type taste to it for some.
Yeah.
All right? Do you get that out of it?
I do. And it has what they call a qingxiangwei from the leaves, that clear, bright fragrance that you get from sort of greenery.
Very interesting.
Steve, this is a really old-fashioned Sichuanese street snack, which used to be demonstrated and sold at temple fairs, because it's quite dramatic. It's called 3 cannon shots, san ta pao, or 3 big bags. So you can see he's shaping these balls of warm cooked glutinous rice, and he's going to bang them into a basket full of toasted soy flour. And then tossing them in the toasted soy flour, which has a nice kind of toasty flavour. a lot of these snacks used to be street snacks sold by individual vendors, either just on an everyday basis or at special occasions like Spring Festival temple fairs. But now you tend to find them on display only in places like this. You can also eat them sometimes in restaurants where they do whole set menus of street snacks all brought together. There you are. The Chinese they don't have a dessert course at meals, but sweet snacks can sometimes be eaten, just on an occasional basis. Quite messy.
Great texture, sesame seeds, and then you got the little sweetness. But they're not very sweet at all.
No, I mean, compared with Western taste, the Chinese really don't have a sweet tooth, at least in most parts of China. There are some areas where they eat a lot of sweet things, but certainly in Chengdu, sweetness is usually, sugar's a seasoning in other dishes, sweet and sour, and those complex chili, vinegar, fish fragrant flavors. But and even the sweet snacks, they're nowhere near as sweet as French pastries or. So a bit of salt in the bottom of the bowl, brown roasted Sichuan pepper, vinegar, so that's brown rice vinegar which has a wonderful rich mellow flavour, a bit like Italian balsamic but not quite as strong. Jiangyo, and this is some soy sauce with a lovely dark colour, and that's the chili oil with the chili sediment. Often in kind of folk cooking and street cooking you'll get a lot of the chili sediment, which gives it a coarser texture but a more aromatic, spicy flavour. He's just poached the rice noodles in the water just to warm them up. A bit of celery to bring a kind of freshness to it. Spring onion, scallion, finely chopped. Da tai. And that's a very famous Chongqing pickled vegetable, rather like the da to tai we've seen in the markets. A sort of mustard tuber that's partly dried and then preserved with spices. So that's a classic sour and hot, in this case from brown rice vinegar and chili oil. There's another kind of sour and hot flavour that you can get from vinegar and white pepper.
And they got the heat of it, the green onions. Really nice flavor. This got a little bit of a burn on the top of the tongue, but it's good. It's a good burn.
And this kind of thing, like a sour and hot thing, is very refreshing on a muggy day,